Hello and welcome to the Watson Weekend. Yeah, we're back again. We're your
Yes,
hosts.
we're
I'm Rick
never going to let
Watson.
you down. It's Friday. Of course we're here.
I'm definitely here. Even if this is like the Friday where no one is going to work, yet they're still clocking in enough to get their scan badge done.
That's right. That's right. You got to get the credit. At least get the credit that you were there. Whether you stayed or not, that's not important.
100%. We're your weekly hit of retail, tech, and e-commerce. It's kind of like a TikTok dance challenge you didn't ask for, but now actually you can't stop watching.
That's right, Rick. We might not have the moves. We're still practicing in the mirror, and no one's going to tell us to stop dancing.
Oh, yeah. And with the overbite.
100%. You gotta get the lift going for sure.
Exactly. No, I mean, in case you hadn't realized, we're actually sponsored. I love the word actually when it's added to anything. It becomes not a compliment. But
we're literally.
Literally, we're actually sponsored by Miracle because traditional e-commerce is just code for not growing. It's time to do better than the status quo. And there are over 450 retailers that are scaling 6 times with a combination of AI, automation, and a platform built for what next. Marketplace, dropship, and retail media in one solution. It's time to accelerate with Miracle. Thank you, Miracle. We have a guest coming up from who's a big new Miracle customer next week, actually.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate Miracle, the opportunity to work together. And thanks for believing in this little show.
Little engine that could. Sometimes
we can, sometimes we're stalled out, but Today we are on a run because we've got a pretty amazing guest. There's lots of interesting news to talk about. And so with that, we're going to jump into the headline hangover. Okay. I've got our first news, Rick, and, in case you have not heard, the latest retail sales have come out, courtesy of NRF. This is the segment we would like to call NRF is no Nostradamus. And here's why we're saying that, because, if you think about NRF at the beginning of the year, they come out, they're very bullish, with some cautious optimism because, it's not like NRF to take a hard stand. They're going to say just enough information to absolutely mean nothing. So they came out of the gate with, we believe in the retail forecast. We're very excited, but we're cautiously optimistic because of some things that are happening, AI trends, seamless e-commerce, but, we don't know what's going to happen in this new world of retail. Well, the latest May sales came out, a little bit softer. And really, basically, they're saying that because of the pre-tariff spending, people were buying up things in advance. That is starting to slow down. And I think the quote really that brings it all home is Matthew Shea's saying, while momentum remains, the nature of consumer spending is shifting as economic uncertainty increases. So, Rick, what do you make of this forward thinking and just groundbreaking news?
He actually said something?
He did.
I missed it. Did I miss your quote? Or I was still waiting for it.
Oh, okay.
It's almost like he was trying to say something, but then it got filtered through PR.
Yeah.
That happened.
The comms slap for sure. Correct. Came down. So, just like many have said before, there was a pull forward in consumer demand. Will that continue? Likely no. But the consumer fundamentals, Rick, are still there. They haven't been damaged yet. That is basically the takeaway. Yeah.
So that's crazy. So we go from the NRF to Shopify, and this is almost like a clue for the new world that we're in. Companies are now starting to update their terms of service because they're essentially taking your data and using it for their own benefit and, well, of course, somewhat to the benefit of other customers. And so Shopify has a new terms of service update that will take into effect, I think, in July, called Shopify Network Intelligence.
Okay.
Like the term military intelligence, it also doesn't give you quite the confidence that perhaps they think it does. So there's a set of products, and I think there are 4 or 5 of them, including things like Shopify Collective, which is kind of their dropship network, their their kind of ad platform. And then the one in particular that I noticed was their sort of search and browse, which is if you want to use a Shopify native search engine, you basically have to opt into this. And so what this says is that Shopify can use your data. It's not very specific on exactly what data it needs, but you must opt into these new terms of service to be able, the Shopify network intelligence feature of it, in order to keep using those features. Meaning if you don't opt in, like, your Shopify search is going to shut down. So
it's a problem.
Right. It's a problem. But why do they need it? Why do they need it actually makes sense. And the reason is you can kind of understand that the data privacy wonks and legal experts have gotten their hooks into what the engineers are actually doing. Like, you're doing what? You're taking data from customer A. It's almost like, you ever seen the movie The Big Short? It's like CDOA, it's a piece of CDOB, and then CDO squared, and it's like cat shit wrapped in dog shit. I mean, that's kind of like what the terms of service becomes.
Yes.
And so at the end of the day, there's nothing nefarious going on here, but it is sort of this new AI world we're living in, where your data used to be your data. Now your data is also your data, but it's someone else's data too, anonymized and secreted.
Yeah, it's just a little algo training. No bigs.
Algo training. You're the algorithm. You're the hamster in the wheel.
Yeah, that's right. That's
what
right.
do you think about this? Good or bad?
Well, no, it's like you said. This is probably happening already. Someone in the legal team got wind of it and said, hold the phones, like, time out. We at least have to disclose what we're doing. Whether or not it changes the dynamics, probably not. At this point, everything we're doing is like the social security number of 20 years ago, where I just was putting that thing on every piece of paper possible. And so at this point, of course, it's on the dark web, living and breathing, and what people are doing with it. So
waiting for you.
Yeah, I know. So my data has been stolen so many times. Who knows? Like, am I real? We don't know.
It just gets to the point where I don't even care about it anymore. I got a notice on CNN's homepage that like 1 billion passwords were compromised, even like Chase. And like, okay, whatever.
Cool.
That's cool. I don't change a single password.
No, it's just another day. So I think that at the end of the day, merchants are probably feeling like this. It's not going to change. Of course, Shopify has been training their algorithms on all the stuff I'm doing. That's how their platform continues to get better. Yeah. I guess, is there fear of something that you're doing differently that could optimize and help then create improvements across? Yes, but that's also the world you're in when you're utilizing a third-party platform. So
right.
I think at the end of the day, you can probably go to sleep at night and it'll all be okay.
Yes.
That's my take.
Well, we're going to go with that for now.
Cares.
If it changes, then we'll keep going.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, we've talked a lot about Nike on this show, and we've got another story. Elliot Hill, the new CEO, kind of the guy that rose from the ranks. He's kind of your hometown pick. And he's now 8 months into his tour. He's resetting the button on leadership, as you would expect a new CEO to do. But this is pretty intense in terms of the replacements. It's 10 senior figures. Some are retiring, some booted. And there's been a few promotions within. So again, creating that dream of rising through the ranks and getting benefit for your loyalty and your performance. So 4 longtime execs, John Slusher, Monique Matheson, John Hoke, and Heidi O'Neill are saying goodbye on their Nikes. Some veterans have moved in. We also have a little cameo here from Michael Gonda, who comes from McDonald's, and Chobani as a chief communications officer. But so basically saying, we got to change our narrative here. We're going to invest in someone who can help us get it done. So we'll see what happens. And then he also announced his strategy, which is We're going to rebuild bridges with wholesale partners. No surprise there. That was kind of the McKinsey recommendation gone real sideways. And he also is saying we got to right size our lines, Air Force One. So they're going to try to make up some ground they lost to Hoka and On. Still try to elbow out with, Adidas, New Balance that are trying to capture this lifestyle shopper as well. Mm-hmm. Do you think more change is coming, Rick?
Definitely more change is coming. But look, the good news is they still have Jordan. Nike is still Nike. And so they can't fall so far. Even John Donahoe couldn't step on the brand so much that Elliott Hill can't revitalize it. So I'm optimistic that if you just get back to not doing obviously stupid things like, I don't know, actively trying to cut sources of revenue, i.e. wholesale, actively avoiding one of the biggest marketplace channels on the planet, Amazon, that perhaps you can return to your former greatness if you focus on, I don't know, your shoe innovation.
Yeah.
There's a crazy idea.
Strategy. Yeah. They were the leaders, right? And it's sort of fallen by the wayside. And I guess that's what happens when your whole team gets distracted, like you said, where you destroy shareholder value by just like eroding sources of revenue and relationships with like some of those boutique retailers, especially like some of those like very specialized running boutique retailers that they just shut down entirely, who cleared their shelves and put something else in. And anyways, so I do think some more change will be coming. Again, remains to be seen. And who can forget the thing that could save their day, the whole Nike Skims collab. Remember, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So hang in a shingle. We'll see what happens.
Correct. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Our final story is actually the scariest and weirdest thing you could ever happen, which is Mattel has partnered with OpenAI, and they said they were going to make an AI generated toy.
Yeah. Right? That's right. Yeah. I want to be in the room where this happened. Someone says, you know what we need is...
You know what's a good idea is?
You know what's a good idea? Let's have a sentient Ken who is trained based on some kind of prompts. There was no disclosure of what toy, what line, just that, of course, we can't be left out of this AI discussion. So we're going to, talk about how we bring this to life.
Yeah.
Some people might say, Rick, this is short circuiting the dream house.
Right. Yeah. It could be the Barbie Nightmare House.
Could be the Barbie Nightmare House. But don't worry, guys. I do think when we think about where the Mattel franchise can go, where Barbie can go, who can forget Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, bringing these iconic roles to life. I don't expect we'll see any slowdowns in the Malibu shade that Barbie's going to throw Ken's way. My first prompt, I think that could come up is, if I replaced you with ChatGPT, would anyone notice?
Yeah.
What do you think?
No. Yeah, Barbie would still have a good time. Yeah, Ken is out of things like, or for Barbie, why does everyone, the first thing they do is cut my hair?
Or lose my shoes.
Yes. Yeah. Where'd my shoe go?
Where are my shoes at? They are nowhere to be found.
Right.
So gone are the days, I guess, of little girls sitting their Barbies around, doing an Oprah style session that was completely driven from their imagination. Am I talking about myself?
This feels very personal.
Okay, it is a little bit, but come on. This is where the creativity happened. And now I'm just going to throw some prompt in that says, if I analyze your personality, what would it say? Oh, by the way, it's still loading. Come on, guys. We can do better.
Right. Yeah,
here we go.
We can do better. We must do better.
We must do better. We will. All right. So again, the most story that we will be watching, and especially who gets the AI glow up. We'll see.
Yeah. Remember Ken's sidekick? Ken had a sidekick somewhere in there. I wonder if he's going to get an AI. He's going to be the...
Oh yeah, what was that character? He was kind of like Bush League Ken that couldn't really make it out. He never broke out. He never broke out.
He never broke out.
Alan. It was Alan.
Alan. We're just going to leave that there. If you're Alan, if you're listening, you will be listening because you're going to be AI enabled.
Yes, you've become alive. Okay, so we are now going to get into the real heart of the show, and likely while you are here, Rick connected with David Baker earlier, and we're going to play you that whole interview because it's really enlightening. To intro David, he is the Chief Digital Officer of Beekman 1802. His scope includes overseeing the brand's digital strategy, social, SEM, CRM campaigns, websites, all the things that you would expect when you're overseeing global digital channels of D2C and Amazon. Previously, David's had a range of different leadership roles. It's pretty impressive when you look at that resume. Companies like L'Oreal, Google, Bonobos, he has literally hit the retail streets, and Baker Street Consulting and GSD&M. He is an active mentor and philanthropist, deep involvement in issues around human rights, social activism, and equality. He's earned an MBA from the University of Oxford, a Bachelor of Science from the University of Utah. God, this guy really is an underachiever. And he's guest lectured at Oxford, Georgetown, and the University of Maryland. Baker and his husband reside in Austin, and we're really excited to have him on the show. Rick, the interview was amazing, so I can't wait for our viewers to see. Anything else you want to say?
No, it was really great. I think if you're at all interested in social commerce and how it actually works, in particular, we really dug deep into TikTok Shop and how to go from 0 to something on the channel. And I think a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is, or if you've tried before, like what you might be getting wrong. David lends a lot of insight here.
Amazing. All right, well, let's roll it because we've kept the people waiting long enough.
We are live here with David Baker, the Chief Digital Officer at Beekman 1802, former Politico turned e-commerce guru and Chief Digital Officer. Welcome, David. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So would love to start to talk. We're going to talk about a lot of things in our discussion, maybe your beginnings, how you got involved in politics and digital marketing and sort of the political era, kind of move on to social commerce, and in particular, some of your theories about social commerce with regard to TikTok Shop and influencers, and then kind of move into measurement and kind of hot topics in the digital marketing world like MMM or media mix modeling or MTA, multi-touch attribution, the tools that are good at this, not good at this. I think there's a lot that the audience can learn from your background, so I'm happy to be able to have this conversation today.
I'm very excited about it as well.
Cool. So let's start at the beginning. How did you get involved and become the digital guy on the political trail?
Yeah, happy to. So I've been working in digital marketing for 15 plus years, but I got my start wanting to be a campaign manager, not of advertising campaigns, but political campaigns.
Right.
And so I studied political science in college. I walked onto my first campaign, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, kind of knocking on doors, being a field organizer. And my campaign manager, her name was Jessie. She said, "Hey, you, kid with the MacBook, come here. You're going to be our digital guy. We want you to do what Obama's doing." And I went, he has a team of 20 people, $100 million. Like, I have a bachelor's degree in MacBook. And I distinctly remember her telling me, "You know how big his team is and how much money he has for digital? Like, already you know more about digital and politics than anyone else they could put here. You're going to figure it out. We're going to give you support to learn it, but go. We need to figure this all out."
Yeah.
And I think from then on, my career has always sort of been on this more leading edge, cutting edge of what's that new frontier of marketing? What is that future of marketing? But I got my start working on political campaigns, doing digital, doing everything from blog content to managing search to building online field organization down to persuasion ads. Ultimately worked on several campaigns, worked for a super PAC, did some of the first early major political buys. We were the first political advertiser on Hulu. We bought the YouTube masthead in 2010. We were the first US political organization to do that. Technically, David Cameron in the UK beat me out by a couple of months. But anyway, it was a wonderful time where everything was new. Right. Everything was churning so quickly, and new platforms coming online, and really wanting to test and learn what was working, what wasn't. Listening to people come in and pitch us on this brand new idea that was going to change the world. Yeah, it felt very much like I missed the .com boom and bubble, but it felt very much akin to that in the political space at that time. And so I spent my time doing that for years. Ultimately, ended up at Google, where I was leading advertising and marketing for all of their cause marketing divisions. So everything that didn't have a bottom line, everything that wasn't really a business. So nonprofits, politics, government, religions, really trying to help them use the digital tools and enhance their capabilities. It was a wonderful time, but grew from there. Ultimately went to business school, decided to take the same tactics that I had to play in this landscape where you had to win a 50% market share in politics or change people's minds and measure that online if we're talking about, say, a government initiative. And take those same tactics, but with corporate dollars behind them, and be able to actually use the right tools and drive meaningful change. So ultimately ended up in the beauty and fashion space, did consulting for several years, worked at Bonobos before they sold to Walmart, ended up at L'Oreal for 4 years. We can talk all about that. And now am leading all of digital for Beekman 1802, a fantastic skincare brand rooted in the power of goat milk and kindness.
That's super interesting. I think going back to your campaign days and you're talking about a street fight, really. I mean, digitally online. I mean, if anything, it's changed, but not that much. Are there things that you learned during that time of rapid response and war rooms that still apply to you today in your current role?
Yeah, I definitely think rapid response is a core part of what I bring today. I think I now reframe it as a sense of urgency. I think there's always a need to see where we can push the boundary on things. I think it's what lets me test and learn into new technologies and not try and wait too long in them. Yeah. I also think, to your point, it is a little bit of a politics is a knife fight to an extent. I think the way I like to describe it in the corporate space is you only win if you get 50% market share. Imagine a business where you have to win 50% market share, otherwise you completely lose. Right. If Coca-Cola gets 1% market share, they got more than $1 billion. That's not how most of the organizations work, but it really trains you on how to understand what's working and then scale into it as quickly as possible. And I think that need for speed and need for understanding really has shaped my career.
This ability to recognize it's working as quickly as possible, I think that is almost the antithesis of this kind of set it and forget it marketing that seems to be the holy grail for a lot of people. Why do you think that is?
Why do I think some people have the holy grail of set it and forget it?
Yeah.
I think I was hearing some people talk just last weekend around whether things have gotten easier in the digital landscape or not. And my takeaway from it was it's never supposed to be easy. You're never supposed to set it and forget it. This is not building brands and building companies that last was never actually a 4-hour work week mindset. I think some people got into this game to do that and to have a lifestyle business. Yeah. But I think that's very different than brands who want to build and grow and build a legacy.
Yeah. I mean, building a brand is supposed to be hard. E-commerce is hard. It's not the most profitable endeavor you could ever choose in your lifetime. But
if it were easy, everyone would do it. And I think that it has gotten easier in some ways. Digital made that easier, but digital also made it harder. I think it used to be you had 3 channels and you put up a TV ad and a third of America saw it.
Right.
And bought. Like that used to be a lot easier. Then it got harder. Then it got easier. Then it got harder. That's the name of the game in my perspective.
Yeah, it's a little bit of we definitely went through an era, especially during COVID, and easy one-click websites and Google trying to do your marketing for you. That anyone that could start a brand has started a brand. And so I think investors tried to chase after that to mostly poor results. And so I think now we're in the era where the survivors are the ones that deserve to be there. They recognize how hard it is. They're expecting and used to that knife fight that you mentioned. Is that fair to say? Or
I think so. I think there's definitely a natural selection happening within the market. I think we see a lot of companies who were living on the edge and were sort of arbitraging or really streamlining everything down to bare bones and finding nice ways around it. And those are also brands that those are companies that were put more at risk. Either they were chasing growth and not a healthy business, or they didn't build a product that could stand the test of tough times, like tariffs. I think is a great example where several friends brands who they were barely eking out before tariffs and that hit, and now they're done. And they can't afford to continue spending money into the system because they weren't built. They thought it was going to be this one click easy, cool, I'm done. I never have to really think about it. When I think about this space, like almost everybody in my position has at some point or currently holds the role of head of growth. Growth is not I click a button and I'm done. Growth takes work.
Right.
Growth of yourself, growth of your business. You have to continually adjust and pivot in order to grow.
Yeah. No, test, learn, fail, change direction, etc. Like, I mean, speaking of change direction, I mean, you certainly made a leap into, as you said, Google and then brands. And I think your role in Beekman today, one of the, I think, main reasons we wanted to have you on was to talk a little bit about social commerce. And I guess as a growth marketer and digital leader, I mean, clearly social commerce is a lot of things. It's like a hot button. It's been sort of a failed, almost I won't say a meme, but like it's been a vision in the United States for years that has been chasing the success in China and other places in Asia, but it's never seemed to be realized until more recently in a little bit different format. So I guess, how would you think about social commerce, social selling? We recently talked about influencer-driven commerce at our session at the Lead too. Yeah,
when I think about when you talk about it, it's been this dream in America for a long time. I think even longer than what you're alluding to. There was peer-to-peer commerce, peer-to-peer selling. I think Mary Kay's of the world, Tupperware parties, etc. I think even when you peel back marketing and you talk to major marketers, one of the best ways people learn about your brand isn't a TV ad, isn't a digital ad. It's word of mouth. It's really hearing from someone they trust. I think that is what out of that grew influencer marketing. We saw that in the early 2010s with influencer marketing of the celebrity style. I think we saw the Kardashians are the perfect example of that. And then it grew into, people who had the same challenges as you did. I think that's where we saw I grew up in Utah, so if the Mormon mommy bloggers and all of the other mommy blogs really were that influencer commerce to an extent. But the challenge was always that was content that was disconnected from the point of sale. And you could use attribution links, you could use various ways to connect back into that. But especially over time, that eroded. Yeah. So then it became, I'm paying them to talk about it with the hopes that I'm going to get sales. Right. The holy grail that I think people are chasing is there one place where someone can discover you and purchase you in the same environment? Right. And it really is that linking of the content and the point of sale. Yeah. So for me in this era, it really is, to me, that TikTok Shop is a huge player in that space. Obviously, right. I think there are many other social commerce platforms that are trying to figure this out. But I think TikTok is an incredible platform that has really landed that discovery side, and then rather than playing it as a social network where you have your group of friends, they played it as a discovery engine and built and layered on commerce on top of it.
Yeah. And so I guess let's start at the beginning. You're a multi-channel, omni-channel marketer, whatever the words are now. Today, you're on several paid channels. You have your own channels. And you're doing organic social and participating, and you're getting some traction. How should you think about, is my product a fit for social commerce, meaning like people transacting through the channels directly and not on your website? Yeah. Who's not? Let's maybe start simply. Who's not a fit?
Yeah. I think it definitely is not a fit for everyone. I think you have to have the depth of within a product line to be able to support it. So we were talking on stage, you alluded to it earlier, a brand that has a wide depth of SKUs, but every SKU is only 30 deep.
Yeah. And why is that? Like, why do you find that you need depth to succeed on this particular channel?
Yeah. And I think in this particular channel, you need that inventory depth because the platform itself rewards prior success. So when you see something sell, it will encourage other people to start talking about it, and it will grow from there. And so the history that you have with a product helps a lot. I think that's the same with other marketplaces.
Yeah,
I think
Amazon's
a great example.
Amazon for sure.
When's the last time you went in to buy a product and it had less than 10 reviews? Like, no, but if it had 10,000 reviews, which they've had through a period of time, if they keep changing that out and they only go 30 deep, you can't get there. So I think that's a clear aspect. I think as well, like there's probably some smarter people than I have gone through and done analysis on where the breaking point of price and AOV is on that platform. I think it ebbs and flows, but you see that in any marketplace. There's going to be a threshold of price of where the audience isn't comfortable there. So I think I wouldn't expect to see Birkins or fake Birkins, the Walmart Birkins, on TikTok Shop necessarily. And then I think as well, like something that is repeatable is also really helpful for the for TikTok Shop. Repeatable, consumable. So the classic example is I don't think people would be buying mattresses on TikTok Shop.
So consumables, replenishables. There's I would say a popular feeling in the community that only cheap stuff is sold on TikTok Shop. Can you debunk that or support it?
I think I definitely don't think that is true. It's not only that. I think there definitely is a strong subsection of TikTok Shop that is dropship. It was benefiting from the de minimis aspect pre-tariffs, and it was driving. But I think like generally you see AOVs of anywhere from $30 to $50 on that platform. So like there tends to be, but like a great beauty player in a space is selling bundles that are $150 to $300, And they're baking value into that because that's the price, but the value of everything you're getting, if you're buying it off her, was $700. So I think there also is a value versus a price point threshold there.
Yeah. And I think you bring up an interesting point about the value there. I mean, that's also certainly seems to relate to the kind of environment we're in, where there are a lot of consumers that are value conscious.
Absolutely. I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think that's why we're seeing a lot more consumers look to platforms like TikTok Shop, where there have been historically subsidies or coupons or deals to be found. I think that's where people are engaging more on the live side of TikTok Shop, because there are those FOMO flash sale moments as well. Yeah. But I think there is a price sensitivity, but it's really, to me, it's about like, we all feel that we're on the precipice of something economically right now. And I think the consumer is very much reacting to that and responding to that as a savvy person of like, do I need this? And they just need something to get them over the edge in order to say yes.
I mean, it's, companies, in particular Meta, have been trying to crack the social commerce code to mostly not great results. And I was involved with some brands testing Facebook stores and Instagram shops and expecting people to come up, and it's just sort of not naturally how people buy, especially compared to like all the other ways that Meta allows you to spend money. What has your personal journey to selling on these social sites from a commerce point of view been like? And what had you been promised, and what did you learn sort of along your journey?
Yeah, I think going back to earlier, I had to be very highly skeptical in my path. So I've been promised a lot and been under-delivered on a lot as well. But I think always there are bright spots. So I'll talk a little bit more on those bright spots. But I think on the Meta side, they definitely have gone through trying to figure this out. I think they are not going to let that go. They are very much chasing to be that discovery engine that can drive and connect to commerce. They're figuring that out. It's when we look at the size of the prize, they are not the behemoth that they are in the advertising space. And I think they have some room to grow. I think we were hoping that with shops we would see better conversion rates, better like less friction from the consumer and more ease of being able to go through and buy. But the consumer just wasn't really there and ready to do that when Instagram started it. I think that the consumer's behavioral has changed, and I think their product has also gotten stronger. So I'm encouraged to see where this goes. I think somewhere on YouTube, that's another great network where that's coming to play. And like I'm very curious to see if Pinterest tries to do something there. I think they have a rich discovery market, but a clunky execution, especially onto the commerce side. But as of right now, like TikTok was the place to go, and it took a little bit to get started there. I think like we got our start in end of the year of 2023. We got started on the platform, and it was a lot of just like a couple of months of back and forth of just trying to get an account. Took a while. I think they've hammered through most of those pieces. But I think it really was in really testing and learning and trying to figure out what worked well for us then, and also knowing that what worked well for us for 3 months is not necessarily going to be what worked well for us for the next 9 months. I think someone told me recently, like, what does it take to win on TikTok Shop? And like, what is the playbook? The playbook is still being written because the platform is still evolving, because the platform is still growing, because marketing is still growing. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think that growth, there is no one click, set it, forget it anywhere, even in social commerce.
I think that's a great point, that the playbook is still being written, although everyone's out there looking for the playbook. If you had to rank, it sounds like in your mind, in the social commerce realm, meaning like social media sites that have become ways for you to transact on directly, IG, TikTok Shop, how would you rate the relative importance of it from is it 10-1? Like, if you think of like 2 years ago, like Amazon and every other marketplace, like a Walmart, Target, it was always like 10x more or less. I think that is slowly, Walmart is slowly closing the gap. But I was just curious on social commerce, how you thought about it.
Yeah, I think like the latest I saw from a full market was exactly 10x. I think that's what we see in our platform as well, from what comes through in TikTok Shop versus what comes through Meta and Instagram.
Yeah,
it tends to be about 10-1 right now. That's why I think there's room for Meta to grow, and I don't think they're going to give up there.
Yeah,
I think we will see that shift over time, but right now TikTok is absolutely that dominating force. I think they're the number 5 retailer in the US right now.
Yeah. And so when you started on TikTok Shop, what was your approach? Like, what did you think? And I think one of the reasons I'm asking is a lot of people in the audience were like, they understand TikTok, the video entertainment platform, because they use it themselves or they see their kids using it. And they advertise brands, or they may pay influencers to send traffic to their site, but they're not involved in TikTok Shop. And so like, what was your expectation coming in? And I guess how quickly did your bubble get burst?
Yeah, I think there definitely was a mindset of like, if you build it, they will come. That's not true. Right. I think there was a mindset of like, let's put everything in, see what works, and double down on it. And that hasn't even been true. I think
right.
Third, we also was like, look, let's take our hero products, and we know what sells well. We know how to sell them well. Let's sell them in this channel. And what was interesting is we took a couple of our hero products on there. And our number 3 for the company, for .com, became very clearly the number 1 for TikTok Shop. And for us, when I take a step back, there was a hypothesis of like, okay, this product's for a little bit of a younger consumer. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's a more fun expression. Maybe it's age. We dove into the data. It wasn't age. We were selling it to around the exact same consumer needed demand. We took a look at, maybe it's just this is doing really well in a different channel, and this is capturing some of that. It wasn't that either. What we noticed and what we really leaned into was, I think, being able to very clearly in video format in 3 seconds articulate a visual hook, a visual problem solution. I think so. The product in question, it's our milkshake toner. You shake it to activate it, so you get a nice visual hook very quickly. You see a yellow phase and a clear phase, and you shake it and it mixes up, and then you can spray it on your face and you see how it moisturizes on one side versus the other. So you can get that play off very quickly. That was really helpful. As we started to see the other products that worked really well for us, it was something that had that visual hook. As a brand that has our roots in selling through video, we have our roots started in TV selling. That's something we have in our wheelhouse. So that really is our DNA of how do we visually tell this story, and how do we do it when we only have a couple of seconds of their attention. We haven't figured that out for every product. Right. But I think the ones that we do have where there's a very clear visual benefit, that's what we see works well. We have a wonderful new sunscreen called Solar Milk that it's an invisible gel and it's an SPF 50. And so you can see very clearly, this is not going to leave a white cast. The visual effect is that you don't see the sunscreen making your face all white. And so finding what those visual pieces are, and all the brands I talk to, like it is that visual moment of that aha moment of truth that you need to bring to the consumer.
Yeah. And I think the visual moment is clearly they're looking at a video. It's a spokesperson, whether it's your spokesperson or an influencer, trying to get across a message quickly. And I think anyone who's seen anyone scroll behavior on TikTok understands you don't have 5 seconds. You barely have a second. And so how do you get them for 3 seconds? I mean, that's one thing I want to ask you about, because that 3 seconds feels like an eternity in today's TikTok marketing.
I think 3 seconds is probably clearly a holdover legacy of my old media buying days. But I agree with you. It is shorter than that.
Yeah.
I think what the other element to it that I think is really telling is it's not just about that visual, although that is important. It is about the sincerity of the message. I think the authenticity, maybe not sincerity, the authenticity of the message coming through. I think like I'll catch my husband or we'll be watching TikToks and I'm like, why are you watching an ad? He's like, oh, I didn't realize it was an ad. It's like, how did you miss that? He doesn't work in marketing.
Yeah.
But I look at those ones and I'm like, what caught him? And it really it feels very authentic. Like this, I didn't think this would change my life. What we're seeing is sometimes that hook becomes an oversaturated. And so that you then have to grow and learn and find something new that can authentically connect. We see a lot right now of a current trend of people saying, don't buy this unless you yada yada. And that don't buy this has gone from being authentic to gimmicky. And I think that cycle on TikTok happens so quickly,
so fast
that you have to be able to be prepared for that. And that's where, for me, the influencer component comes in, the affiliate network that comes in.
Yeah.
Are we able to?
This is a good transition, I think, into the influencer side of things. And it's also, I think it plays so well into your authenticity message. I mean, just being my own marketer for my own business and this podcast and anything, you have to do something for 6 months, a year before you find your voice. If you can't find your voice and be comfortable in your own skin and making mistakes and being real with people, then no one's ever going to trust you. And so marketers inside of a corporate entity often don't have that kind of runway to like experiment and fail and really find what is a key voice. You almost have to outsource that someone else, which is that someone else in this space is the influencer. Yeah.
And I think there are a couple of different reasons for that first part. I think in particular, especially as marketers, we're so close to the product. We know everything about it inside and out that sometimes we don't have the perspective to take a step back and talk to why it matters for that consumer. And I think that really, like, the classic example is of David Ogilvy, who in his I think it was a BMW, maybe a Rolls Royce, that the loudest thing you'll hear inside this car is the tick of the clock.
Right.
And that's something that was buried 400 pages deep in a spec doc. Like, in terms of sound, like, it took someone with an outside perspective to see that. On our side, like, we'll talk about, like, oh, this moisturizer, it's so emollient, it like feels this. And I had to take this back. I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, oh, it feels really luxurious and rich. I was like, okay, that like can use.
And I understand.
That I understand. So I think there's a little bit about that. What I love about working and partnering with creators and influencers is just how much the perspective they give. They tend to be experts in that category, or they're experts in that slice of life.
Yeah.
They're not an expert in skincare, but they are an expert of being a mom busy on the go.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, like, how would you define an influencer?
Yeah. I think that definition changes every day depending on who you ask. And it's everything from a celebrity spokesperson down to the person who motivates you and who you tend to follow, whether they consider themselves an influencer or not. Realistically, my friend is an influencer to me. She points out amazing new trends. Like, she's been trying to get me to make a tomato martini for about 9 months and really been pushing on that. And now I keep seeing it everywhere. I'm like, you were ahead of that trend. I should have been using the martinis. She's an influencer to me, but she's not out there making content. So really, we look at it from a content creator perspective. And it's anyone who is out there making content for their audience, to bring people into their community and to share the things they truly love with them. So for me, there's a fantastic creator. His name's Mark Sebastian. He, I think, just hit 2 million followers. I've been following over 5 years. If he were to tell me about a product, I'm going to listen to him because I know it's authentic. It's coming from a right place. He's not normally going to end up on people's radar of like, oh, this is an influencer we need. But he's a solid person for me that I follow, I would trust. To me, he's built that trust over time. And I think that authenticity and trust component is going to be so important in the next 18, 24 months with the advent of so much AI content coming.
Right. Yeah. No one knows what they can trust anymore. So you highlighted two big things: visual call out, and then authenticity and trust. I think for brands, they're always interested in scale. And so like contacting a couple of influencers, getting them to try your product. A lot of people are afraid of that because we're like, what do I promise them? Like, what do I have? Especially if you're a brand trying to break into a category, what do you have that other people don't have? You don't have the same budgets. Like, and so if you're that kind of brand, how would you characterize and give guidance to someone trying to navigate those early days, weeks, months in establishing a formal influencer program at your company?
I think the best initial creators you can find, and really the best creators you can find, but particularly when you're just starting out, are people who already use and love your product, who know you and who are comfortable talking about it. So generally you start with who's already talking about us. Right. Let's make them a little bit more of a formal arrangement.
Right.
I think beyond that, it really is finding people who align with the brand, even if they aren't going to speak with the brand's voice. Mm-hmm. So I think for us, it's finding our kindness ambassadors. That's our kindness crew is what we call our influencer program. Mm-hmm. People who we know that the content they're putting out is going to fit within the framework and the values of our brand.
Right.
I think that's one place to start. And then I think as well, like finding those people who are at the intersection of talking about your brand authentically to their community and people who are selling product. And sometimes those are two different audiences. Ideally, they are that you can find the Venn diagram of both, the intersection of both. So for us, we use several tools to help us look through and find creators based off of who they follow, what their audience looks like, their size, et cetera, to find and do outreach to. We'll also find people who, especially on TikTok Shop, where with their tools, we're able to see what are they selling well, what are some of the pieces of content they do really good job selling. Mm-hmm. How do we try to get our product in their hand to get them to love our product? And it starts smaller and you build from there. I think there really is two pieces if you're just getting started. And one is starting small with community and micro creators and getting them on board, because you want to have some value of high velocity trust with those consumers. And then I think it helps if you can get a bigger name to draw in more people and attention. Right. So for us, we pulled someone who had done a lot of marketing for us and a lot of pieces of content for us off TikTok into the TikTok arena to try and pull some creators who saw them talking about a product. Mm-hmm. Oh, it must be good. Let me follow. Let me reach out. Let me accept that message from the brand. It really is a virtuous cycle of finding bigger creators and building that community overall. But like we have creators who we invite to events and things who have less than 1,000 followers, who, because we know they have a really high engagement with that community that they are building. And we know that if we can work with them now, that we'll build a great relationship with them for the long run.
Right. One of the things I find that is not super well known is how much volume of content is required to feed the algorithms of these programs. And TikTok Shop kind of viral effect. How would you think about, like, if you were trying to scale to a meaningful channel here for even just for a modest like 10 to 15 SKU portfolio that you're trying to put out there? Like, how should you think about it? Like, tens, hundreds, thousands of pieces of content?
Again, I think it depends on your industry and your category and what you're selling. I think in food and beverage, you can go a lot wider because you can sample a lot easier than say cookware. But I think it really is a factor of that. But I think to me, it is about finding the right quality and then leveraging quantity. What's really interesting is we see roughly 60% of our sales on TikTok Shop come through our affiliate creator partners. They are the biggest driver of that. What's interesting to see is that the top handful of people are driving the majority of that revenue. Most of the videos that people are creating aren't directly driving revenue. What they're doing is creating a chorus of support behind your brand. I think back to the example I was giving the other day. Early days of online shopping, you would go and look at a pair of shoes, and then the Zappos app would follow you. And it would follow you for about 13 days because they knew by day 14, if you hadn't bought, you weren't going to. And it was a dynamic remarketing ad, 300 by 250, sitting on all the websites. And it was the same pair of shoes. And you got fatigued off of that one ad because you saw the same ad. What's interesting and beautiful about the creator space is by having a wealth and a chorus of voices singing about your brand, it doesn't feel like I'm being overwhelmed by that one asset. It feels instead to me as a consumer, everyone's talking about this and I'm missing out. I need to just do a little bit more research.
Yeah.
What's interesting is it takes a lot of those touch points for someone to convert. They end up converting on one of a handful of videos because there's someone that finally puts them over the edge. But I'm a firm believer that those touch points before are very critical.
Yeah.
So to your point, from a how much you need more than you think. Just because 80% of your sales are coming from 15 creators who are posting 2 times a month doesn't mean you need 30 pieces of content. You probably need 10 times that.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, I think that's a good mindset for people to go into this with, that they need 10 times as much content as they think they do, because the top content, it's almost like I used to talk to sales leaders, like, we're going to come up with a new concept, but we're only going to sell people that are going to buy for us. I'm like, well, that's great, but they call it a sales funnel for a reason. Not everyone's going to buy from you. And then some people are going to buy later. Not everyone's looking right now. And so it's the same thing with everything else. What's your intuition on the number of touches in this sort of like fragile media ecosystem world we live in, where no one trusts anything, for someone to like really see something, to see it referenced multiple times, and then actually follow through on it in a typical consumer product scenario?
I think like I haven't looked at the research in a while. I think it probably has changed a little bit, but I think the human psychology of it hasn't changed all that much. So I think 12 to 15 times is what had been quoted to me when I was coming up. And I feel like it's not that different in the consumer space. Politics is a little bit different. You gotta hit them a lot of times. But
the more expensive the product, clearly it's going to take a little bit more.
It takes a little bit longer. Absolutely, the consideration cycle. And I think one of the joys of the internet and the joys of what I've loved working in the digital marketing space is that there is personalization.
Yeah,
it's been a long time since I, as someone who does not have kids, has gotten an ad for Pampers. That's a great thing. It does mean that once I start showing interest in market for something, I start seeing ads for it.
Right.
Started seeing ads for cars the other month because I started to dabble there, and I realized that the algos had picked up on that.
Right.
I think there is a value there.
Yeah.
But I do think it is still in that probably 12 to 15 touches. But I think in the TikTok space, those impressions are different. I think it's 12 to 15 times you've engaged and actually looked and watched that content, not that an impression has flashed across your screen.
Got it.
So to your point, like if you're flipping and you're getting less than a second, I'm not saying 15
doesn't count for anything, right?
Doesn't count for anything. Yeah.
That makes sense. I would love to understand, especially because, look, a very popular topic is how much should I be spending on this channel ahead of revenue? And so do you have any are there benchmarks that you look, I need to spend at least, I'm going to say 15% of the revenue I expect to generate from this channel to make it meaningful when I start out, and then it flattens, or like, how do you think about either from empirically based on your data or what you actually spent and wasted in all your attempts at making this work?
Yeah, I think it comes into where and how you're classifying spend. So I think there's an ad spend component to it. There's also a time spent from a team of finding the creators and a sampling cost to it. I think from my perspective, sampling cost is probably the best one you can do and the best bang for your buck, because you're getting the product in the hands of potential consumers who are going to talk to you. And the way TikTok has built their platform, the creators have to generate content for it, or they're penalized. So you do end up getting a larger source of content from that. To me, I think like that's a critical one to invest in. I think overall, like you should be spending at least in similar order of effects of any channel that you were getting started on, which you're going to have higher upfront costs, but it'll scale over time.
Yeah.
What's been very interesting for me is that TikTok in particular has, unlike Meta, where you think of it much more bottom of the funnel or middle of the funnel, TikTok is both a sales channel and a discovery channel for us. We are seeing a very clear, solid return on our ad spend dollars.
That's fascinating.
And also a very powerful upper funnel awareness capture and discovery tool where people are getting into our marketing funnel at a higher level. And we're seeing them convert, whether directly on platform or off platform, at a really solid rate. So for me on TikTok, there are halo effects that are beneficial to keep it at that higher percentage, maybe in the 20% range as you start out, and start to think less so around do I bring that down, or do I look at a bigger picture of how this is impacting the other channels I'm selling through.
That makes sense. I think it's fascinating that you're talking about TikTok being used all over the funnel. And I think that also gives you yet another reason to generate more and different and interesting pieces of content. Because even on my own uses of social, sometimes you're getting introduced to a category and you're just looking for sort of broad strokes. You're a new car buyer, you haven't been in the market in 10 years, but versus now, you discovered you want something you can take with you to the mountains. So now you're going after, like, you're comparing the Honda CR-V to the Subaru Impreza, or like whatever it is.
Exactly.
You need something way more detailed at that moment.
Yep. And I think that that's where, for me, that consumer story is impactful of what is that visual hook, but there are probably several along the way. As I said, there's the shake aspect of the product. There's the spray where you can see it, how fine of a mist it is. There's how it performs on your skin.
Yeah.
I think there are several components, and each of those stories may get a different consumer to buy in. So it is important to have it across the full funnel. And that's something where we've been able to measure it and see that impact across the board.
Yeah. I mean, this has been such a great conversation. Like, I feel like we could probably talk another hour just about TikTok Shop. We plan to talk about other things. I don't even think we're going to get to those things. I would love to maybe end on your advice to someone who feels like their influencer marketing channel is not performing? How do you diagnose that? What should you think about as your next steps if you were dropped into a random brand as a new operator?
I think I would, as someone who's done consulting and been dropped into a random brand as an operator, I think I really need to understand the goals of what is the goal that we're trying to succeed on. Is it earned media value and upper funnel awareness? Is it sales? It's generally always a mix of the two, but where is that mix for this brand?
Mm-hmm.
Within that diagnosis lets you play a little bit. I think focusing on the sales side, because you've been living in the social commerce world, I'll put the earned media value a bit to the side. I think it really is around finding what creators are driving the value for you, and where in their flow and in their funnel you're able to reach that. So how many people are you outreaching to? How many people are responding to that outreach? How many people are then accepting a sample request? How many are then posting? What are they posting? Is that content converting? And then finding the people who fit this bucket and finding more of them upper funnel and building that cycle. Like, it is, all marketing is a funnel at the end of the day. It's just which funnel are you in? It's a different kind of funnel. And I think like that is a lead sourcing funnel to a large extent. But I think in particular, when I look at that first part of who are you outreaching to and how many are accepting, that is the biggest drop off. Because as creators, they're getting 15 plus messages a day from brands. Hey, try this product, try this product, try this product. How can you disrupt it? Either by finding people just that layer right there. Either by finding people who already know and use your brand. Great. You already have a little bit of a leg up. Or how can you disrupt that message a little bit and speak to that? We early on, we were just saying, hey, we're Beacon 1802. This is our brand. We'd love to have you be a part of it. And that was what everyone else was doing. Right. I think we found success when we said, hey, we have creators making this amount of money. Would you like to be a part of them? Right. Because we spoke to their language. They wanted the money.
Right.
We've also, if I was going on the earned media value, we would say like, look, we love the kindness that you exude. We want to be a part of that and help amplify that.
Right.
It really is speaking to that consumer, speaking to the right consumer with the right message at the right time in their journey. Ultimately is what's gonna yield you success.
That's fascinating. I think that whole idea of treating these influencers as a funnel and managing it as a sales cycle really is something that people don't generally think about from a marketing point of view, because it's not a direct sale.
No, it's not a direct sale.
You're selling through someone else. And you mentioned at the beginning, I think it brings back to the beginning of the conversation, you were talking about Tupperware parties and Mary Kay. And now it's like, I wasn't smart enough to understand your analogy, but now you're like bringing it home for me. And
well, I'm gonna bring it even to the earlier conversation. You go knock on doors, you learn what people care about, bring them that messaging down, and you build that community and that coalition behind people who actually go and vote. Right. I think it's the same lessons that I learned on the political trail of really engaging with those people and bringing them down through that process.
Yeah.
It's just doing it in a different sales funnel and at a different speed.
Cool. That's great. I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation, David. We're going to have you back on for this whole second part where we talk about MTA and MMM and all the other things that you're passionate about.
More than happy to. So, absolutely.
For sure. So appreciate the time and look forward to seeing everything.
Thank you so much, Rick.